Dr. Pillsbury, a lot of people here in China wonder, does making America great again mean scrapping off all the basic principles and the foundations of the bilateral relations? For example, about Taiwan.
No, most people don't understand the one China principle and the one China policy. The American promise, first made by Nixon, continuing till now, was American government will not discuss this in public.
But
now, Mr. Trump actually is correct. He said, why should I be bound?
That
no
all the
document
presidents
says Taiwan
of the United
belongs to
States
China.
since Carter have all agreed to that basic principle and knows that China and the United States,
one at a
this
time.
is the very bottom
One president
line
decides at a
and
time.
foundation. If that foundation is being scrapped off, how much do you think Chinese can trust the Americans?
It hasn't been scrapped. Mr. Trump is only saying, he's thinking out loud. Trade policy was not included.
How much do you think a president can think out loud?
He's not president. He's a private citizen.
Once he comes into the White House, is he going to change as a result?
I hope he accepts the 3 communiques, and I hope he accepts the one China policy. Myself, I happen to accept it. I worked for all these presidents who agreed to it. But he has the right to examine the documents himself and try to understand the negotiating history. Not just blindly like a shagua, just say, okay, I accept one China policy. No.
Great. He's
he
going
has the
to
right
study
to do what
the
he's
documents and understand the history. That's very important for the Chinese
I think he's already
as
done
well.
it. Mr. Trump does not need any advisors. He has already written 3 books that talk about China. And one of his, I think his most recent book, actually, last year, says he wants to be unpredictable toward Chinese, because he's, in the book, he says, Chinese are the best negotiators in the whole world. So to get an advantage, he wants to be unpredictable in the eyes of the Chinese government. I think he succeeded in this, don't you?
I don't know. What's your expectation of him?
I think he'll be one of our best presidents.
In terms of U.S.-China policy, what does that mean?
I think he will improve U.S.-China relations.
In what way?
Well, you have to understand from his books, he has kind of an admiration of the Chinese people and Chinese culture. He makes this very clear. Also, his daughter, Ivanka, has a 5-year-old daughter. She's been studying Mandarin since she was 18 months old. So there's some interest in Chinese culture and history in the whole Trump family.
If you meet Mr. Trump again, or being consulted by Mr. Trump or his team, what would you suggest to him, given the changes that we have seen in our world these days, given your conversation with many of your Chinese acquaintances to get to know the Chinese mindset, and given the fact that there have been too much uncertainties?
I have a short answer to your question.
Go ahead, sir.
I say the road to making America great again runs through Beijing.
What does that mean? Runs over Beijing or runs through Beijing?
No. As the 2nd largest economy in the world, China can help us have a faster growth rate with more investments in America. If China, for example, doubles the number of exports it buys from America, that's another 2 million jobs. China's growth in buying our exports is up 500% in the last 15 years. This is amazing. If we could double the amount of exports we sell to China, it helps to make America great again. So more investment from China, more exports from China, treating our companies better here. So there's 4 or 5 areas where if China has an incentive and a common interest with us, China can really help his main goal of making America great again.
Well, making America great again, does that mean dragging the others down? Well, America rise, quote unquote, again.
No, I don't think so. In fact, the reason I wrote the book, 100-Year Marathon, is that China has been growing so fast the last 30 years.
That you should drag China down to slow down its speed?
No, both can go faster. But we've been at 1 or 2% growth the last 30 years.
Well, look at your
China's
economic base. That is huge.
China's averaging 10%. So I want America to stay #1.
What is a good deal to Americans' eyes, do you think? For example, a person like you, does it mean all for the Americans' interest, or it has to be a win-win situation?
It can be win-win.
It can be, or will it be a win-win situation?
I think it'll be win-win. I'll give you an example. Jack Ma stood next to Mr. Trump just a few days ago, and Mr. Trump said he's so happy to talk to him that if American products from small and medium-sized businesses are on Jack Ma's internet for sales. This could produce as much as 1 million new U.S. jobs. That's win-win. Chinese customers, through Alibaba, will get interesting new products. America will get 1 million new jobs. This is a perfect model for what Mr. Trump's been talking about.
Mutual trust, always the most challenging.
I agree.
Strategic trust, even more. However, how could all of these things be done, Dr. Pillsbury, without the trust, or with the trust even evading as we're speaking?
I think common interests overcomes the need for strategic trust. When we had common interests against the Soviet Union, this did not require a lot of strategic trust between Mao Zedong and Nixon. It required clear common interests. We still have this kind of common interest.
So you're a
That's what we
Cold
have to
War
find.
mentality guy.
No. Common interests don't have to be Cold War. There can be many other common interests. Today, for example, China is strongly against terrorism, international terrorism.
It is very important to hear different kinds of voices so that we have a much sound judgment eventually.
If I see you in 2 or 3 years, I think you'll agree relations under Mr. Trump are better than under Obama and other presidents.
It really depends on what Mr. Trump will do, I guess.
I'm quite
that answer.
optimistic myself.